Hey there, my name is Rose. I'm the one you don't hear about in those family photos where everyone's smiling like they don't have a care in the world. I got a sister, Lucy. She's been the star of the show since the day she was born. Little Miss Perfect, right? And me? I'm basically the backstage crew in my own life. But enough about that. Let me paint you a picture. It's the morning of my 10th birthday. I'm at the breakfast table thinking maybe today things will be different. Dad's munching on his toast, buried in a newspaper. Mom's fluttering around, and Lucy's there, eyes all wide and innocent. I'm waiting for some pancakes, maybe a happy birthday, the usual birthday jazz. That's when Lucy, all sweet-like, starts to cry. Through her tears she goes, "Rose pushed me, and I hurt my knee." I'm standing there, jaw on the floor. "What? No, I didn't." But Dad just peers over his paper, frowning like I'd spilled his coffee. And Mom? Well, she's already knee-deep in Band-Aids for Lucy. "You've got to be kinder to your sister, Rose," Mom lectures. No room for buts. "But you heard your mom," Dad cuts in. And just like that, end of story. No pancakes. Lucy's whimpering turns into a sly grin the moment they're not looking. Birthday canceled on account of sibling drama. Courtesy of yours truly. Fast forward to Christmas that year. I wake up thinking, maybe this time I'll score some decent loot. We're around the tree and Lucy's tearing through her presents like a tornado. New phone and fancy threads. I find my name on a package, rip it open. Socks and some dollar store alarm clock. I mean, come on. Later, I'm sitting on the porch, skipping rocks on the sidewalk. Grandma Joan finds me there, hands me a cup of hot cocoa like she always does when the world gives me the cold shoulder. "Thanks, Grandma," I manage, trying not to sound as grumpy as I felt. High school was no different. Lucy had the looks, the friends. I had acne and a job at Sal's Pizzeria. Worked my tail off, got those grades, and I'm thinking, this is going to be my ticket out. Right? There's this one night, senior year. College brochures spread out on the kitchen table like a bad hand of cards. Dad's fixing the sink, Mom's doing her Sudoku, and I'm about to lay my cards down. Tell them about the colleges wanting to throw scholarships my way. I'm all, "There's this college outstate." "Money's tight, Rose," Dad says straight off, not even looking up. "We're looking at community options." I shoot a look at Mom for some backup. She doesn't look up from her puzzle. "We're saving for your sister's college fund." That's when Grandma Jones steps in, real quiet. She talks to Dad first, then Mom. It's not pretty, but when she's done, she's got that check for me. Pressed it into my hand like a secret handshake. "Make it count, kiddo," she says, eyes all fierce. And that was it. That check was my golden ticket. My ride far away from socks, alarm clocks, and Lucy's messes. Out of the circus, just like Joan said. As soon as my feet hit the campus of that outstate college, it was like I could finally breathe. No more Lucy, no more comparisons, no more feeling like an afterthought. I was my own person here, and that was all kinds of liberating. So yeah, I dug into those law books like they were the only things keeping me grounded. I was at the library more than I was at my own dorm room, came to know every coffee stain on those tables like they were my personal constellation of caffeine. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Money was tight. I remember this one time at the campus grocery store, counting coins from my pocket for a week's worth of ramen. The cashier was tapping her nails, looking bored out of her mind. "You going to pay or what?" she drawled, popping her gum. I was a dime short. A freaking dime. "Hold on," I mumbled, searching my pockets for a coin. Now wasn't there? That's when this guy behind me sighed loudly and threw a quarter on the counter. "Here, keep the change," he grunted. Embarrassing? Yeah, you bet. But it was also the day I met Mike, who turned out to be a fellow law student and a bit of a smart-ass. A friend, something I hadn't had a lot of in the grind between classes and part-time jobs. Mike and I stuck together. He was as plain-spoken as they come. Didn't have patience for show-offs or slackers. Wasn't the type to sugarcoat feedback on my mock trial performances either. "You've got to stop sounding like you're asking permission to be fierce," he'd say. "You know this stuff, Rose. Act like it." And I took that to heart. By the time I was sitting for the bar exam, I felt like I was carving my own path. Laying down the law, you know. I wasn't Rose, Lucy's sister. I was just Rose, soon to be Rose-esque at the firm. Things were different. I had to prove myself again, but this time it was on my own terms. The partners, they were a mixed bag. Some welcoming, some wary of the new blood. I remember being cornered by one of the senior partners, Bill, during my first week. "So you're Joan's granddaughter," he stated more than asked, eyebrows up like he discovered gold. "Yeah. How'd you know?" I was wary, keeping my answers short and my guard up. Bill chuckled. "Joan and I fought in the same trenches once. She mailed me your resume, said you had grit. I'd have groaned if it didn't feel like a small victory. Grandma Joan, still my one-woman fan club." In that firm, I made it known I wasn't there to ride anyone's coattails. I worked cases like they were puzzles only I could solve. In the courtroom, it was another world. I wasn't the kid sister or the overlooked daughter. I was fierce. Mike's words came back to me about not asking for permission. "If the glove doesn't fit," I'd say, cutting through the noise, "then you must acquit." Simple, easy, nothing too fancy. To the point. It worked. So yeah, I escaped from family expectations, from always being second best. I made it on my own terms, and it felt like freedom. Hard, exhausting, but undeniably mine. It all started at the courthouse steps, where I bumped into Tom, literally. Papers and apologies flying everywhere. He was there to support his buddy. I was on my first case. We laughed it off, grabbed coffee, and it turned out we could talk for hours. He was a contractor, not bothered by my legal jargon, just easygoing and genuine. Before I knew it, we were inseparable. When we decided to get married, the plan was no fuss, just us and the people we loved sharing a good time. That plan didn't stand a chance once my family entered the picture. "It's nice," Mom would say, dabbing the corner of her eye, her tone adding a silent but. Dad just patted my shoulder, a silent solidarity that didn't quite warm me. And Lucy, she had to make an entrance, even if it wasn't her day. She arrived in a dress so flashy you'd think she was the one getting married. But I bit my tongue. It was my wedding day, and I wasn't going to let her rain on my parade. At least that was the plan. Tom, he was a champ about it, meeting my sister. He just gave me that look. Wow, she doesn't hold back, does she? I wanted to bury my head in my bouquet. You have no idea. The guests started piling in, and for a moment, it looked like it might actually be a good day. That's when Lucy decided she wasn't getting enough attention. You just going to ignore me on your wedding day? She was almost shrieking, eyes darting around, hoping someone would sympathize with her. I took a deep breath, counted to 5 in my head. I was done being the peacemaker. Lucy, not today. Please, she huffed, tossing her hair. Whatever. Mom shot me a warning glance, like it was my job to fix it as usual, but something in me snapped. This was my day, mine and Tom's. I wasn't going to let Lucy or anyone else mess with that. Get out, I repeated, and my voice didn't even shake. Lucy looked at me with wide eyes, kind of like she did when we were kids, and I'd finally stand up to her nonsense. What did you just say? I'm done with your drama. This is my wedding, and you're not going to spoil it, I declared. She sputtered, red in the face. But I'm family, she protested. So family doesn't pull this kind of crap, Lucy. Not today, not at my wedding, I asserted. Mom tried to intervene. Rose, don't do this. She's just... I cut her off. No, Mom, enough is enough. Lucy's face was a storm cloud, and she looked ready to argue, but this time she didn't. Maybe it was the way I stood. Maybe it was Tom's hand in mine. Or maybe it was the crowd of guests watching the drama unfold. But for once, Lucy didn't have a comeback. She just turned and strutted out, heels clicking against the pavement like a judge banging a gavel. The rest of the day went by in a blur. I said I do, we kissed, and I've never felt so much like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not Lucy's shadow, not my parents' second choice, but Rose. Just Rose. And that was more than enough. Okay, so get this. A month in, post-wedding drama, and Lucy pulls a Houdini. Total ghost town where she used to be, right? She scoots out of town, leaving behind nothing but a crummy note. And guess who's the villain in her soap story? Yep, yours truly. Turns out her exit strategy includes playing the blame game, and I'm it. Her note, classic Lucy painting her runaway act with a bunch of bull about how I've done her wrong, like she's the fragile flower and I'm the big bad wolf. At the next family dinner, the air's so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife. Mom's at the head of the table, flinging accusatory glances my way like she's dealing cards at a high-stakes poker game. Rose? How could you let it come to this? She starts, and I can feel the showdown brewing. Do you know, Mom? Maybe 'cause I ain't the warden in Lucy's personal prison. I shoot back. I'm not in the mood for a guilt trip, that's for sure, Dad chimes in, his voice laced with that don't rock the boat tone. Your sister thinks you never gave her a break. That's serious, he adds. Are you kidding me? I can feel my temper flaring, words hot on my tongue. After everything, you're going to take her side based on what? A damn piece of paper? That's when Granny, sweet Granny, who always had my back, pipes up, her voice like thunder. Rose, your sister's out there alone, scared, and it's your doing. You too, Granny? I couldn't believe my ears. Since when do you buy this load of crap? Her eyes got all misty. Your ways pushed her to it, Rose. You're not innocent. That was a gut punch. I'd been looking out for her since diapers, and this is the thanks I get? The old lady was on a roll, though. No excuses, girl. You've got a heart. Use it. The whole clash was absurd. There we were, a family, tearing into each other over Lucy's concocted tale. Even Granny, who'd never once doubted me, was singing a different tune. And boy, did it sting. I stormed out of there, the room thick with unsaid things. Granny's betrayal cut deep, but what cut deeper was knowing I'd stood up for myself. I was done being anybody's villain, especially not in Lucy's crafty escape act. If they wanted to believe her over me, that was on them. Tom's been acting off, real off. All those late nights at the office, trips out of town every other week, big projects he can't talk about. Yeah, right. Man's as subtle as a brick through a window. And then, like fate's trying to tell me something, I catch a glimpse of something red peeking out from his jacket pocket while I'm on laundry duty. A receipt for some fancy women's shop. No way was that for me. I didn't confront him. What's the point when you know you'll get nothing but half-truths topped with lies? I decided I'd do it the smart way. Let someone else do the digging. Yeah. I called up a private eye, got him tasked on tailing Tom, seeing what really goes down when he's working overtime. Jimmy's the name of the PI. Seems like he's been in the game long enough to see everything twice. Just want the straight shot, I told him. No chasing ghosts. He gave me a nod that said, as clear as day, I got this. So I wait. Days feel like weeks when you're waiting for a bomb to drop. I keep things normal at home, or make a damn good show of it. Every time Tom tells me he's got to work late again, I nod, smile, and say something like, Don't work too hard, babe. One night, he said it again. Got to finish up some things at the office, you know how it is? I shrugged, playing it cool on the outside, but inside, my mind's racing. Sure, Tom. Don't forget to eat something. Wouldn't want you wasting away, I said, giving him a peck on the cheek as he headed out the door. I'm left feeling like I'm on some warped episode of a TV show where the wife's the last to know. I try focusing on a book, some cooking show. But who am I kidding? My head's not in it. Instead, I'm thinking about that receipt, that damn piece of paper that feels like it's burning a hole through the fabric of our little suburban life. Finally, I get a text. Not from Tom, but from Jimmy. My stomach drops when I see his name flash up on my phone. I don't open it, not yet. Can't bring myself to. Whatever's in that message, it's going to turn my world upside down. Instead, I pour myself a glass of wine, let the cool liquid settle my nerves. They say ignorance is bliss, but I pass that exit miles back. I have to look. I pick up the phone, thumb hovering over the screen, and then I press. But Jimmy's text isn't the full picture. It's just to say he's on the case, got some leads, we'll know more soon. Soon, he writes. That's it then. No turning back now. Tom's little secrets are on borrowed time, and when the truth comes out, I'll be ready. There's something liberating about it, knowing that I'm no longer in the dark, playing the doting wife, smiling while something rotten eats away at my marriage. Grandma Joan and I hadn't been seeing eye to eye recently, but the envelope stuffed with the PI's evidence was burning a hole in my bag, in my conscience. Deep down, I knew she was the only one who could give me the straight talk I needed without sugarcoating the jagged pill I was about to swallow. I knocked on the door and it swung open, revealing Grandma Joan with her arms folded, looking as staunch as ever. "Took you long enough," she said without a hello. I let out a breath that I had been holding in longer than I realized. "Yeah, well, I'm here now." We sat down at the kitchen table, the same one we'd shared more Sunday dinners of than I could count. But today, it wasn't a warm roast that lay between us, but a file filled with photos and texts. "I've got something to say," I started. But she cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. "Save it," she said. "I can guess why you're here, and I don't need an apology." I narrowed my eyes, ready for a quarrel, but her face softened. "What's done is done. Let's just hear what you've got." So, I spilled it all, the late nights, Tom's hold, the lies that didn't add up. "Do you have proof?" she asked, eyes piercing through me like she could see the answers scribbled across my heart. "It's all here," I said, tapping the envelope. She reached out and I handed it over, but she didn't open it. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes. "You know this doesn't change anything between us, right? Family is family." That's when it hit me. Whatever had come between us, whatever words we'd exchanged that we couldn't take back, none of it mattered now, not with this storm on the horizon. You're right, I answered. It doesn't change a thing. I still need you, Grandma. Good. She grinned, but there was a seriousness in her eyes that wasn't usually there. Because I need you too. And let me tell you, whatever's in that envelope, she tapped it and slid it back towards me. It doesn't define who you are or what you're worth. We sat there for a while, not saying much, just being together. It felt like the air had cleared, the storm clouds were still there, but now I wasn't going to weather them alone. Later, when I went to leave, Grandma Joan gave me a tight squeeze. You call me, you hear. Day or night, we'll figure this out. I pulled back and looked at her. I will, and thanks, Grandma, for everything. As I walked away, the envelope heavy in my bag, I felt lighter somehow. My steps were more certain, my spine straighter. Whatever Tom was up to, whatever the PI had uncovered, I was ready to face it with my grandma at my back. I felt like I could face just about anything. A month had whipped by, and there we were, gathered in the stiff parlor of Grandma's house. Me, Mom, Dad, and my husband Tom. An odd quiet hung in the air as the lawyer got ready to dish out the details of the will. Just the scene you'd expect, except for the empty spot where Grandma used to be. And then, like out of some crappy soap opera, in walks my sister Lucy, all dolled up and smirking like she's just won the jackpot on a scratch card. Mom and Dad, tears in their eyes, fuss over her like she's just returned from war, not the two-bit runaway act she'd pulled. I stayed put, my hands clenched into fists under the table. I wasn't about to give her my piece yet. She swans up to Tom, bold as brass, and plants one on him. My Tom, as if that wasn't gag-worthy enough. She starts spouting off this garbage about how she'd cooked up this whole mess, how I made it all happen, that Grandma would bequeath her property to me, not to the villainous Rose. Lucy gloats, thumbing at Grandma's portrait with a grin that made my blood boil. And I also took her husband away from Rose, she adds. Mom's sobbing, Dad's face is ghost white, and there's Tom, cheek to cheek with the snake, both of them looking like they've got the secret to the universe. We have the last laugh, he says, his voice slippery with that grin plastered all over his face. The room's buzzing with their confidence, them thinking they've got it all sewn up. Grandma's gone, and in their mind, her house, her savings, all her bits and bobs were theirs for the taking. They didn't see me smile. The lawyer, a guy with less flair than a wet match, starts talking. So, as per Mrs. John Holloway's last will and testament, the lawyer drones, and here it comes. The entirety of her estate, her home, her financial assets, and her personal effects are to be left to... I already see Lucy reaching out like she could already touch the velvet of Grandma's antique chairs. Her granddaughter, Rosemarie Kendrick, the lawyer finishes, with no fanfare. The silence is thick enough to cut. Mom and Dad look between me and Lucy, their tears dry now. Replaced with something else. Confusion. Betrayal. Finally, I break the quiet. Well, I guess that's that, huh? Lucy's mouth zips shut, all tight lines, and Tom, he's paler than a ghost, his eyes not meeting anyone's. You wouldn't believe the circus that unfolded after the will reading. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Distant relatives suddenly remembering my name. But me? I kept it tight. It wasn't about the drama. It was about staying 3 steps ahead. So what's the plan now, Rose? Tom asked, with that rat-like twitch of his lip, trying to sound all sweet and concerned. We were standing in Grandma's kitchen, a place where I'd shucked more corn than anyone's business. I leaned back against the counter, feeling the cool marble against my spine. Well, Tommy boy, first up, I'm changing the locks, I said, watching his eyes dart like he'd been zapped. But what about us? He stammered, like he hadn't been caught red-handed. I chuckled, low and steady. Oh, darling, us jumped ship the moment you cozied up to my sis just to get a piece of the pie. Lucy's eyes flicked between us, sensing the shift in the air. She was like a cat that got caught sneaking a pawn to the fishbowl. You can't kick him out, we have rights, she protested, her voice strained. I arched an eyebrow, amused at her guts. Sweetheart, after what I found out, the only right you're going to need is the right to a good lawyer, I retorted. Tom's face was pale, eyes darting to the door, probably scheming his next escape. But there was nowhere for him to run, not this time. I felt the weight of the house keys in my pocket, the groovis grounding me. This was more than just a will. It was Grandma speaking from beyond, telling me to tidy up the trash that clung to her legacy. I walked over to Tom and handed him the papers. Sign these and we can at least pretend you walked away with a shred of dignity, I said. He snatched them up, his hands shaking like he was in a snowstorm without a coat. His signature scribbled across the page was the scribble of a defeated man. Lucy was seething. You think you've won? She hissed, her voice a strained whisper. I smiled, genuine and clear. Honey, this ain't about winning, this is checkmate. You played dirty and you lost. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a garden to tend to and a life to live. With that, I left them there, in the dust of their greed, in the kitchen filled with memories of sugar cookies and laughter. A kitchen that would soon echo with new stories. No more wistful nostalgia, no regrets. Just me, my bonus,